So here's something wild that most people are missing about Fast 11. Everyone's talking about this being the end, but the title itself is basically Universal winking at us, saying this franchise isn't going anywhere. Think about it. They didn't call it The Last Ride or Final Mission or anything that screams finality. They called it Fast Forever, which is either the most ironic title choice ever or the most honest one. But let's back up. After years of speculation and shifting release dates, Vin Diesel finally dropped the official confirmation. March 2028. That's when we're getting what used to be called Fast X Part 2, now officially rebranded as Fast Forever. And honestly, that 5-year gap between films is brutal. It's the longest wait this franchise has ever had, which is saying something for a series that's been pumping out movies since 2001. The behind-the-scenes chaos explains why. Initially, Diesel was talking about an April release, then director Louis Leterrier mentioned 2026, but nothing stuck. Universal kept juggling the story, the budget, and Diesel's massive vision for how this should all wrap up. At Fuel Fest in 2024, Diesel showed up with Tyrese Gibson and Cody Walker, teasing April 2027. Plans kept morphing. Diesel even announced they'd film in Los Angeles to help the local economy after those devastating wildfires. Plus, he wanted to direct another Los Bandoleros short film to bridge Fast X and this finale. Everything was in motion, just nothing concrete until now. Fast X didn't just end, it detonated. Dom's literally driving down a dam with his son while explosions tear everything apart. Then smash cut to black. No resolution, just chaos. Then we get those post-credit scenes with Hobbs and Giselle returning, basically guaranteeing a direct continuation. The family is completely shattered across the globe. Roman, Han, and Ramsey's plane got shot down. Letty and Cypher are stranded in Antarctica where they randomly encounter Giselle, who's been dead since Fast 6. Everyone's isolated, which actually sets up something the franchise hasn't really done properly in years. This could genuinely become a road trip movie. Not the globe-trotting spy thriller nonsense, but an actual American road trip where different characters are traveling separately, dealing with their own fallout from Dante's attack before gradually coming back together. That setup creates space for character moments that these films have been too busy to explore. Instead of everyone magically showing up at a barbecue like nothing happened, we'd see the messy process of rebuilding the crew. That feels earned, especially after how brutally Fast X scattered them. Now, there's this whole budget situation that's actually kind of fascinating. Fast 9 and Fast X didn't deliver the massive returns Universal expected, which has real consequences. Budget cuts are coming, but here's the twist. That might save the franchise. These movies escalated from street racing to literal rocket cars in space. They started with stolen DVD players and ended up fighting international terrorists. The spectacle kept growing because that's what seemed to work, except it stopped working financially. Tighter budgets could force the series back toward practical stunts, custom cars, and street racing, you know, the DNA that made people care in the first place. Diesel has hinted that Fast Forever will feel more grounded. He's called it artistic, unexpected, more focused on the emotional journey. If that's true, it's a massive shift. But the franchise has to earn that narratively. You can't just announce you're going back to basics and expect it to land. Racing needs to matter again. In recent films, races have been nostalgic callbacks or flashy setups for bigger action sequences. Dante's race in Fast X wasn't about competition. It was about showing how psychotic and dangerous he is. Jason Momoa went full chaos mode with that performance, which worked, but it wasn't really about racing. So here's my theory on how this should end. The final confrontation between Dom and Dante shouldn't be another CGI explosion fest. It should be a race, a brutal, high-stakes, emotionally charged race where everything Dom stands for is on the line. That would connect back to the franchise's roots while still feeling monumental. That's the kind of ending that would actually resonate instead of just being loud. There are signs Universal might be thinking this way too. Devon Aoki, who played Suki in Too Fast, Too Furious, has apparently been spotted around production circles. If she's actually returning, that's a massive signal that old school characters are coming back. That opens possibilities for proper send-offs through racing for characters like Letty, Han, Giselle, and Roman. Give them moments that actually matter instead of just being there for exposition or one-liners. Meanwhile, Hobbs and Shaw can stay in the heavy action lane because racing was never their thing anyway. Speaking of Hobbs, Dwayne Johnson is absolutely back. His Fast X post-credits scene confirmed it, and the fact that he reconciled with Diesel behind the scenes makes it possible. Jason Statham is reportedly signed for 2 more appearances, which could include Fast Forever and the long-delayed Hobbs and Shaw sequel. That spin-off is still stuck in development limbo, even though the first one made over $750 million worldwide. Producer Hiram Garcia confirmed talks back in 2019, but Johnson and Statham both got busy with other projects. Universal even considered doing a standalone Hobbs Hobbs film to bridge Fast X and Fast Forever, set up by Dante threatening Hobbs in that post-credits scene. But with Fast Forever now deep in development, cramming in another movie would just complicate the timeline. The focus shifted back to Hobbs and Shaw 2, which Johnson has described as more emotional and grounded, even comparing it to Logan. If that's accurate, it could be Hobbs' final mission, which would be fitting. But here's where things get complicated. Diesel keeps talking about the end, except he's also teased that the finale might stretch across 3 films instead of 1. Universal's parent company Comcast is reportedly pushing hard for a Fast 12. If that happens, budgets will definitely be tightened after the last 2 films struggled with profits. Diesel has also mentioned wanting time to explore the emotional reconciliation between Dom and Hobbs properly, and that's not something you rush in a single film. Add Hobbs and Shaw 2 into the mix, and we're looking at least 3 more Fast projects before anything truly ends. There's also that female-led spin-off that's been rumored forever, plus potential solo films for other characters. Things have gone quiet, but quiet doesn't mean dead in this franchise. It's starting to look like Universal, and Diesel might split the finale into multiple films just to bring back nearly every major character from the entire saga. Which brings us to the big question everyone's avoiding. Also, Vin Diesel has never stopped teasing some kind of return for Brian. Dom named his son after him. There are constant nods to his skyline. As the saga heads toward its conclusion, it feels almost inevitable that Brian will be part of it somehow. Modern technology makes that possible, just like Furious 7 managed it, but it's an incredibly delicate situation. Digital recreations can go horribly wrong, and fans will notice instantly if it feels exploitative or poorly executed. If Universal brings Brian back in any capacity, it has to be done with genuine care and respect. Now let's talk about what Fast Forever actually means as a title. There are 2 ways to interpret legacy here. There's the legacy of Dominic Toretto, Brian, and the rest of the family within the movies themselves. Then there's the footprint these characters and films have left on audiences over 2 decades. The title works for both. The last movie featuring Dom should look back on what he's done and explore the true impact of his actions. All roads have been leading to this moment, especially after Fast X connected various threads together through Dante's motivation. But here's what's clever. Universal didn't choose a title that definitively positions this as the absolute end. They could have gone with something final sounding. Instead, they picked a title that by definition describes something that will always exist. That speaks to the franchise's future. This might be where Dom's story ends, but it's probably just goodbye for now. There's nothing about the title that prevents other Fast and Furious movies from happening beyond this point. Rather than lock themselves into a conclusive title that becomes awkward if more films happen, Universal gave itself room to keep this franchise running forever, regardless of how Fast Forever actually ends. The Fast saga is too popular to ever truly die. Fast Forever might be a playful admission that this franchise will keep going forever. Whether through spin-offs, prequels, or completely fresh standalone stories set in this world, the series will return somehow after this. The title acknowledges that fact while still connecting to Dom's expected send-off. It's smart branding disguised as sentiment. And look, Fast and Furious is one of the biggest and longest running franchises in cinema history. With the box office power it still holds, there's zero chance Universal or the cast walks away quietly. If the next few films perform well enough, this saga could keep going far longer than anyone expects. It might even outlast Avatar in sheer longevity, which would be absolutely insane considering where this franchise started. Christina Hodson and Oren Uziel were brought in to shape the script, which tells you the studio wanted to balance spectacle with something more character-driven. On paper, that's solid. In reality, development has been slow and fans have felt every minute of it. But keeping Louis Leterrier on board to finish what he started makes sense. He needs to resolve that cliffhanger properly. The thing is, Fast X left too many loose ends to ignore. Dom and his son barely escaped a damn explosion. Roman's crew went down in a fiery crash. Letty was rescued by someone who was supposedly dead. Picking up right where that ended feels inevitable, which means we're probably not jumping straight into a stripped-down street racing movie. And honestly, Dom's crew hasn't been street racers for a long time. They're global operatives now. Going back to basics sounds amazing, but the franchise has to earn it through the story. Still, no matter how big this gets, the street racing DNA cannot be forgotten. That's the heartbeat of the franchise. That's what people fell in love with. And if Fast Forever really does bring things back to the streets, even just partially, that might be exactly what this series needs to cross the finish line the right way. Because at the end of the day, these movies work best when they remember what made them special in the first place. Not the explosions or the impossible stunts, but the cars, the racing, and the family that built itself around both.